Crowley taken down in New York.
And he was beaten by a 28-year-old socialist running for the first time.
President Trump awarded the Medal of Honor.
Today we tell the story of an incredible hero who defended our nation in World War II, First Lieutenant Garland Merle Connor.
The results, the primary results, are in now. A huge night at the ballot box office, or the box, I should say, for political newcomer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, and Utah Senate candidate Mitt Romney.
And not such a great night for 10-term Congressman Joe Crowley, the fourth most powerful person in the House.
That's right. He was faced with a shocking loss in the New York primary. Welcome, everybody, to Fox and Friends. You know what? Todd Pyro is looking at all the results. He's down in the newsroom, and there are some shockers, Todd.
There are, guys. Good morning to all of you. First in New York, where they are calling it Eric Cantor 2.0, but this time for the Democrats. Joe Crowley, the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, who, like Cantor, was expected by many to be a future Speaker of the House, suffering a shocking and sound primary defeat. The winner? Wow. 28-year-old Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Bernie Sanders supporter who has called for getting rid of ICE and who is endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America.
I cannot believe these numbers right now, but I do know that every single person here has worked their butt off to change the future of the Bronx and Queens.
Also reacting to the news, you guessed it, President Trump, who tweeted, "Wow, big Trump hater Congressman Joe Crowley, who many expected was going to take Nancy Pelosi's place, just lost his primary election. In other words, he's out." That's a big one that no one saw happening. Perhaps he should have been nicer and more respectful to his president. To South Carolina now, where Governor Henry McMaster was projected to win a Republican gubernatorial runoff election against John Warren. This after the president was in the Palmetto State on Monday rallying for McMaster. Also, Mitt Romney's political comeback taking a big step. The former Massachusetts governor and 2012 presidential candidate projected to win his primary runoff in the race to replace retiring Utah Republican Senator Orrin Hatch. And finally, convicted leaker Chelsea Manning soundly defeated in her run against longtime Senator Ben Cardin in the Maryland Democratic primary. Guys, back to you.
Wow. All right. Todd, thank you very much. So Joe Crowley was the king of Queens, and he had not had a challenger in 14 years. He had a boatload of dough to spend on the campaign. You know, pretty much avoided being head-to-head with her. There was an opportunity with the debate. He didn't show up, sent somebody else.
Well, and look at the results.
Yeah, 26,000 votes in all in the district. 90% is Democratic, so she's going to get the nomination on Election Day. Going to get the seat on Election Day more than likely. He did spend $3 million. But evidently not well spent, so it's a stunning rebuke. But it's also a big move for Bernie Sanders and socialism. This is a socialist. She wants a guaranteed salary. You know, she wants guaranteed health care. I don't know if she can deliver that as a freshman if she does in fact win in November from the House. I mean, right there in Queens, you lose a lot of power because Joe Crowley had a lot of it. So if he wanted to use it to represent the people of Queens, he could have used it instead of, and maybe been the next House Speaker if the Democrats took the House and Nancy Pelosi is indeed
not to go to certain states and stayed at home and didn't really campaign during the summer.
Sounds like it's a layup. He's like, who's going to challenge me? And who's this woman? She's a bartender. Nobody knows who she is. I don't know who she is.
It's really the state of the party. I mean, what do the Democrats stand for? She was clearly, you know, she describes herself as a Democrat socialist. She's clearly aligned with Bernie Sanders and her platform, Medicare for all, housing as a human right, wants to get rid of ICE, crack down on Wall Street, and a federal jobs guarantee. I mean, that is the Bernie Sanders message. Where's the Nancy Pelosi, Joe Crowley message in that? You know, we're going to take back your tax cut and get rid of your crumbs.
Very, very extreme, but not surprising. It's New York City, or New York, the New York area, Queens, which is very liberal.
All right. Meanwhile, the President of the United States got good news from the U.S. Supreme Court. By a 5-4 majority, the Supreme Court upheld, in the case of Hawaii versus Trump, the travel ban restriction from 8 different countries. And the countries were North Korea, Venezuela, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. Because the president had the authority, because he felt that those countries were not vetting people who were coming into our country carefully enough. There was not enough information sharing and security risks, and so he came up with the travel ban. And yesterday, the Supreme Court said he has the power to do it.
Third attempt in a matter of about a year and a half. Been wrapped up in federal courts. This was the president's third attempt, and turns out that he ended up with success.
Yeah, he ended up successful. It's a big one for him after a series of lower court losses, many of which said, hey, I know what the law says, but I also watched this president campaign, and I think he's this is a Muslim ban, so therefore you can't ban somebody from coming to this country because of race, creed, color, or religion. So therefore, he actually thought it through. The first iteration was terrible. It was handed out in an awkward way of a brand new president, a brand new administration, but they eventually got it right. So the Democrats clearly admitted, the court's the court, 5-4, I'll accept that verdict. Or they could say this.
Today was a fantastic fulfillment of Osama bin Laden's vision by Donald J. Trump. What Donald Trump and this Muslim ban signal to the world is that Muslims are not welcome here.
If it really was about our safety, it would be a different list. There's a moral assault, a moral vandalism going on.
President Obama never said we're going to ban people based on the religion. It was always rooted in factors that had to do with legitimate national security interests. Why don't we take Trump at his word? He said it's a Muslim ban.
No, he didn't. He said it was a vetting system. He never said it was a Muslim ban, did he? He just said...
Well, during the campaign, he did talk about how he would like to essentially keep any Muslims coming into the country. That was during the campaign. But then again, you look at the ruling, and the Chief Justice said religion had nothing to do with this. However, Justice Kennedy, in a lecture to all political leaders, but really kind of a message to Donald Trump, said you need to respect the constitutional liberties as freedom of religion.
Well, the president said it's about vetting, and
right.
The vetting systems in these countries, it's inadequate, and we don't want dangerous individuals, terrorists coming into our country.
Like Syria. I mean, how many times do we do stories about how when ISIS went through Syria and they'd knock over different towns, they would take all the passports. So the people who held Syrian passports, you couldn't really be sure whether or not they were who they said on their documents.
All right, civility in politics, it's non-existent. It's getting scary. And yesterday, another example, Mitch McConnell, who married Elaine Chao, who works for the Trump administration, found himself in the eye of the storm yesterday as he walked out to his car with his wife. They were chanting something about the immigration policies and what's happening at the border, but Elaine Chao would have nothing of it. Listen.
Why are you separating families? Why did you leave my husband alone? Why are you separating families? Why did you leave my husband alone?
I will say this. The Secret Service got to push these people back. You got to be kidding me. This is a majority leader and a cabinet secretary, and they're within feet of the SUV. I hard to believe that that is indeed procedure. Meanwhile, edited together on the right is just some of the latest, I guess, examples of a lack of civility in our country and unhinged, and how scary this is getting. Look at all this.
A few years ago, ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Those ideas are now mainstream.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
What's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
One way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy, so please bring on the recession.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
What you were just watching is an edited video of all of the left just continuously becoming unhinged and saying such angry and hateful things about this administration. GOP had enough. They put it all together so that you at home could see it. It's a very long video.
And keep in, it's a minute and 7 seconds. And keep in mind that one of the, I think the second or third voice you hear in there is Nancy Pelosi. Yesterday, the President of the United States said Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters are the face of the Democrat Party. So clearly he's trying to tie this unhingedness to the Democrats.
Let's see if Democrats are going to understand when this is all together, how serious this is getting, because this is not a game. 11 minutes after the hour. Jillian, you have other breaking news.
That's right, and one person is dead, guys. A dozen more hurt after a massive explosion at a hospital. A hospital official says the blast probably started with a gas line in a construction area at the medical center in Gatesville, Texas. This photo showing the moment of the blast with debris flying through the air. All of the victims are construction workers. No patients were hurt. The blast so powerful it knocked out power to hundreds of people. We will keep you updated. A federal judge ending most family separations at the border and paving a way to reunite those families already separated. The California court ordering all kids under 5 must be reunited within 14 days and all older children within a month. This as 17 states sue the Trump administration over those family separations. The White House says more than 500 minors have already been reunited with their families. Let's look at your headlines. Send it back to you.
All right, thank you very much. And the compromise immigration bill that they're going to be voting on in Congress today, tomorrow, something like that, that would have language that would keep families together. So how many Democrats are going to vote for that? And again, how many Republicans are going to vote for it, because it is expected to fail.
Right. E-Verify is now factored in to try to get somebody else, some other people involved. So 13 minutes after the hour now.
So what is next after the Supreme Court's travel ban ruling yesterday? Dr. Sebastian Gorka is going to be on deck with Brian coming up next.
Plus, every dog has its day, even if they don't look their best. The world's ugliest dog, voted the ugliest dog, that's not my opinion, is in our green room with Janet.
Look at that tongue. Fox.
We have to make sure that we vet people coming into the country. We know who's coming in. We know where they're coming from. We just have to know who's coming here.
And that was the point of the travel ban, limited travel ban. The Supreme Court ruling in favor of President Trump's travel ban preventing nationals from 7 nations, including 5 majority Muslim nations, from entering the U.S. So what does this mean for the president's plan to keep America safe, as he pledged to do as a candidate? Let's ask his former deputy assistant, Fox News Channel security strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. So, Dr. Gorka, they changed it twice, 3rd iteration. Court still had a problem with it. Supreme Court passed it. What does this mean now?
Well, Brian, it means that now for the 3rd time we've had the president's right reasserted. Back in the 1950s and 1980s, and now at the Supreme Court level, it's been made patently obvious that the constitutional authority to decide who comes into the country and what yardsticks they are measured against lies with the chief executive, with the president. As we argued back in January last year when the executive order was first signed, the president gets to decide. And these countries, which remember, the threat analysis was inherited from the Obama administration, these are of greatest concern. These are the nations where there are active either civil wars, terrorist hotbeds, where the identity of individuals coming into America cannot be adequately confirmed. And to keep Americans safe, the president is limiting the travel into America from these countries. So a lot of money was wasted, a lot of time was wasted, but the president's authority is now reaffirmed, Brian.
Well, some people are upset, strikingly enough, including Steve Schmidt, former Republican strategist, who tried to get John McCain to be the next president. He says, as of today, it was a fantastic fulfillment of Osama bin Laden's vision by Donald Trump. Bin Laden hoped to provoke was a war of civilization, a war between the West and 1 billion Muslims. And so Trump and his Muslim ban signals to the world that the Muslims are not welcome here. Is that how you interpret this?
Well, clearly this man, I have no idea who he is, has never opened an atlas and has no idea about the Muslim world. If this executive order had anything to do with Islam, then of course it would have included the most populous Muslim nations of the world, such as Indonesia or Egypt, which it doesn't. So this person has no idea what they're talking about. This is about national security. It's about protecting Americans. It has nothing to do with religion.
Right. 8% of the world's Muslim population included in this list. It does not include Saudi Arabia either. There's some people that there's nothing President Trump can do that they will agree with. Dr. Gorka, thanks so much.
Look, Brian, as somebody else said, if Donald Trump came out of the White House and walked on the water of the Potomac River, they would say he can't swim. Some people are just detached from reality.
Right. And some people will swear he can walk on water, and they just need him to try. Thanks, Dr. Gorka. Straight ahead.
Brian.
All right, it's been a week filled with clashes over civility in politics. Where do we draw the line? Is it getting scary to you? Our panel here to discuss it next, and that's what the panel looks like from the side. It's a Washington tradition unlike any other. This year's running of the interns, but it is not a drill. What network won, and what went down trying?
Some quick headlines for you. First up, Oklahoma is one step closer to legalizing medical pot. Voters there passing the measure overnight, allowing patients with a medical license to carry up to 3 ounces of marijuana in public, and they can grow up to 6 plants at their homes. Oklahoma will become the 30th state to legalize medical marijuana once Governor Mary Fallin signs it into law. And anti-abortion clinics do not need to provide abortion options to patients. The Supreme Court yesterday also ruled a California law likely violates the First Amendment. The law requires centers to tell patients about the availability of state-subsidized abortions, even if they oppose the practice. And that's some of the news, Ainsley, but not all of it.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve. Congresswoman Maxine Waters confronted on Capitol Hill following her wild rhetoric. Watch this.
Please come to my office and talk with me.
Where can we
we'll
eat?
Be happy to talk.
Where can a conservative eat at a restaurant in
Please
D.C.?
come to my office and talk.
I'm asking you right now.
Please come to my office and talk with me.
You're talking about civility. Do you think it's civil to call for the harassment
Please come to
of
my
Trump
office
officials?
and sit down and
No,
talk
I'm asking
with
you
me.
right now.
Will you please come
Are we
to my
supposed to
office?
sit at the back of the bus?
Here for a conversation on civility and politics, our panel, we have Democratic strategist Rochelle Ritchie in the blue on the far left, political commentator and Army veteran Kathy Barnett. We have Fox News contributor Lisa Booth and attorney Richard St. Paul. Thank you all for being with us.
Good morning.
Does anyone agree with Maxine Waters saying you need to go out and you need to speak your mind, and when you see someone you don't agree with, you need to confront them? Does anyone agree with that?
No. Not here.
No.
I honestly think that we are on the brink of what I would call political discrimination. I mean, we know that in the United States we have a history of violence against people of a different race or a different religion, and my fear is that we're going to start to see Americans targeted with violence because of their political views. I mean, this sort of divisive rhetoric, I don't care if it's coming from the left or if it's coming from the right, it's toxic, it's exhausting, and it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
But you know, when you have people calling for people to be punched in the face or to be followed and harassed,
what's going to happen next? next. It's very scary. Now, Lisa, what's interesting is they're confronting Maxine Waters, and she doesn't want to talk. She's like, come to my office.
And let's be
she's
civil.
calling for other people to go up to Republicans or people that agree with President Trump at a shopping mall or at a gas station and yell at them and be aggressive.
Right. And I think I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said, but I also think we're sort of already at that brink. We're already at that point where we've already seen violence. I mean, it was just over a year ago where Steve Scalise, there was an attempted assassination on his life by someone who was anti-Trump, a Bernie Sanders supporter. You had Representative David Kustoff in Tennessee that was driven off the road because of his vote on health care. Martha McSally, a guy spending 15 months in federal prison for threatening to murder her. We've had a decapitated animal and burnt on a DHS official's household on his front step. So we are past the point where this is just words, and we are at the place where it has turned into actionable violence, and we should be very concerned as a society as a result of that.
Richard, how did we get here, and who's going to listen to those? How are the protesters? How do we stop them from even taking it to the next level?
Well, look, I want to say first of all, we have the First Amendment right, which is the freedom of speech, right? But even freedom of speech has its limitation. I mean, this here is fighting words. Push back on them. Tell them they're not welcome here anymore. What does that say? The next step would be violence. So you have to limit, you know, it's great to have a great debate, vote. There's plenty of opportunities here to be civil, but these fighting words, these violate even the Constitution of the United States and the First Amendment. And how do we stop these folks? Is we have to shame them. We have to tell them, your behavior is not welcome here. Leave these people alone. Let them shop. Let them eat. Go protest. Go vote. That's where you voice your concerns.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer came out and he did condemn those folks that are doing this.
As did Nancy Pelosi, too.
Yeah, she did as well. Not as strongly as Chuck Schumer, though. Kathy, is this going to backfire, or is there some positive change that will come out of this? Will Republicans and Democrats alike finally stand up and say, enough, this is America, we don't stand for this?
I don't know if that will come anytime in the near future, but what I do know is that we have now moved beyond where you and I can agree to disagree. It is now, I must annihilate you. I need to obliterate you. I need to denigrate you in such a manner where there's absolutely no coming back from it. Civility, decency, the golden rule, those things are out the window right now, because I believe we've forgotten that we're human beings. If you cut me, I'm going to bleed.
Are y'all having conversations with your kids and with your spouses at home? And are you
mom?
Yeah,
Always. You know what I mean? As I walk around and trying to raise my two young children, I mean, the two things that I readily recognize is that, one, evil is real. Hate is real. It is not beholden to a particular color or to a particular political party, and its only goal is to divide. The second thing I talk to my children about is that hate is not invisible. We have to allow it to embody us. We have to allow it to come in and take a portion of our life. Can you imagine if a card-carrying KKK member kicked a black family out of his restaurant, or a Christian business owner kicked a gay couple out of their restaurant? Can you imagine the backlash that would have descended upon these people? We need to stand up and say enough is enough. This is wrong.
Well, I think one of the problems in this country right now is that freedom of speech is only free when people like what you have to say. Because quite frankly, we should have been having this discussion when we saw people being shoved at Trump rallies, when we saw people being punched in the face. We should have been having this discussion then. And so this sort of child's play that we're seeing play out right now started in the Oval Office, and unfortunately,
or maybe we should have started this conversation when Obama said we need to bring a gun to a knife fight.
And unfortunately, it spread from the Oval Office to
Lisa, you
the
have a lot of
halls of
friends on
Congress.
Capitol Hill. Are you talking? Are they all? Do they have a plan of action if someone confronts them? And we've come to that point where people are having discussions with their spouses of, if someone approaches us at a restaurant, how are we going to handle this?
Well, what's funny is in Washington, D.C., you are used to encountering people that have a differing point of view. I mean, it's just standard operating
usually
procedure.
They're friends,
yeah,
right?
they're friends. I mean, I'm friends with everyone I go on TV here and disagree with on politics. I can still see them as a human being and be friends with them. And I think the biggest thing we need to do as a society is for people to look inward, because it starts with you as an individual and the way that you treat people, treating people with respect, and still seeing someone as a human being despite your political, religious differences or whatever differences you may have.
That's a good message to end it on. Rochelle, Kathy, Lisa, and Richard, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, we've been telling you about this congressional intern who was cussing at the president. Remember this? Well, this morning, her boss is defending the decision not to fire her, and she says you can thank President Trump. We'll tell you those details. Plus, every dog has its day, even the ones that don't look their best. The newly crowned world's ugliest dog is in our green room with Janet.
Well, what we know now is that the person in charge of the Clinton email investigation, Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page, were in the tank for Clinton and hated Trump. Now, did those two people start an investigation against the Trump campaign because they had a political bias, or was it based on legitimate evidence? He should be the last guy to go to court to get a warrant on anybody associated with the Trump campaign. My question is, what role did they play in the Russian investigation?
And by the way, he told Martha MacCallum that, not knowing the answer, but we might be able to get answers as soon as today, because Peter Strzok, the infamous head of counterintelligence, who ran the Russia, as well as Senator Graham just said, as well as the Hillary Clinton email investigation, was known to be anti-Trump. So, was he part of the effort to make sure Donald Trump was stopped, or was it just something you say to a girlfriend on the side?
So these are going to be some of the questions that they're going to be asking him today at 10 o'clock. They're going to close great big wooden doors at the House Judiciary Committee. He's going to be appearing. He's going to testify. He's not going to get immunity. He will not invoke the Fifth, but lawmakers have a ton of questions. What were he and Lisa Page talking about in those text messages? Also, was he one of the leakers? Did he leak to the press to make President Trump look bad? And what about those reports that the FBI agents write up, the 302s? Does he know of any of them that were ever instructed to be changed? Was he involved in that? Because if that happened, and we've heard people on this show said they might have been, that's criminal.
They want to know what led to this investigation. What led to them investigating President Trump? Was it because they hated him and then they were trying to find a crime? Dan Bongino, I remember we interviewed him several weeks ago, and he said when he was an investigator, there would be a crime and then they would trace it back to the criminal. Right. And he said in this case, they're trying to make the president, or were trying to make the president, the criminal and trace him to a crime. And if that's the case, that is illegal.
He'll be behind closed doors. Jim Jordan says it's better that way. We're going to get more done rather than 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes. Also stunning, too, Real Clear Investigates has an interesting story, quoting a former FBI agent, says that there were 7 attempts made by U.S. intelligence and Clinton operatives to essentially entrap members of the Trump campaign, the so-called informants that walked up to Papadopoulos and Carter Page. There were 5 other attempts with other people, and we know those accusations. Will Peter Strzok have any answers for that? And for Lindsey Graham to say this to Martha, he says, Martha, what I'm shocked that nobody in your business, really outside of Fox, seems to give a damn that the head investigator for the FBI wanted to stop Trump and basically bastardize an investigation of Clinton.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should have a problem with that.
It's a story.
Absolutely.
It looks like it was a brazen plot to frame Donald Trump and his campaign. It's coming on this afternoon. We'll hear stuff this afternoon after the break for lunch. In the meantime, Jillian has got some headlines at 22 minutes before the top of the hour.
That's right. Good morning. An entire sheriff's department is on high alert after one of their deputies was rushed to the hospital for touching a flyer laced with fentanyl left in her patrol car. At least 15 of those flyers containing an anti-government message were found on employee cars outside of the Texas Sheriff's Office.
Somebody could have died. The fact that it's being used on officers it's a game changer.
The deputy has since been released and is expected to be okay. Remember, the Capitol Hill intern who cursed at President Trump. Well, now her boss, Senator Maggie Hassan, is defending her decision not to fire her. The New Hampshire Democrat tells the Washington Post, quote, this behavior shouldn't be equated with the president's destructive and divisive action. This young woman immediately accepted responsibility for her actions and is facing consequences for them. The president is doing neither. The intern was suspended for a week. Decision day at the Supreme Court is a big deal for a number of reasons, but for the interns, it is truly a time to shine. Take a look at this, a mad dash as they hand-deliver decisions to reporters. Our Shannon Bream sharing some video, proudly declaring one of her assistants the winner. Recording devices aren't allowed in the building, so decisions are delivered on paper. That was a fun thing to watch on Twitter yesterday. That's a look at your headlines. Steve, send it down to you.
Thank you very much, Jillian. You know, they say every dog has its day, and for Jaja, a 9-year-old English bulldog, that day was this past Saturday at the 30th annual World's Ugliest Dog Contest in Petaluma, California, where she walked away the big winner for being ugly.
I would love to meet Jaja, and I would love to meet the owners of Jaja, Megan Brainerd and Jesse Larson. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Your dreams
Now,
come true.
Oh, wow.
Are you supposed to say congratulations for having the ugliest dog?
I think she's the world's adorable dog.
You know, your dog looks like, with all due respect, I know you knew the dog was ugly because you drove 30 hours from Minnesota to California.
Yes.
But it looks as if somebody has, in a lab, taken different ugly parts of dogs and put them all on that dog.
Megan, go ahead. Tell me.
Definitely overbreeding and for the puppy mill industry, definitely shouldn't be breeding these characteristics. And
describe the things that
her very, very broad shoulders, obviously her tongue and underbite, and definitely yes, but she's so beautiful. She was. But
Jesse, what kind of dog is it?
Oh, it is.
Good question.
I said, I think earlier, kind of a messier dog, but very animated, but very, very gentle. So she's.
How did you decide to enter?
You know, I want to say I just seen it on TV, and then yeah, definitely with the comments that we get from people daily that she's super ugly. But Megan, you don't care. No, that's great.
What do people say when you're out walking?
Oh, I'm not kidding. Like, oh, what an ugly dog. I mean, just like
People say that?
Oh my gosh, I'll be like, oh, that was.
Your dad was saying that kids will come up and shake your tongue.
What is this? Is the tongue always like that?
It's always.
It never goes in back in the...
Never.
Does she get dirt trapped on the tongue?
It's always dry and has dirt.
Usually sweeps the floors with the tongue.
Very slowly. It doesn't take a while for her to chew it because her teeth aren't lined up, but she definitely loves eating.
She was so cute.
So, Jesse, would you say this is a special dog that you would never change Jaja for any dog in the world?
Never.
No, I don't think so.
You would change her?
I got one other dog that is pretty special as well.
But this is special.
This is very special, yes.
Did you pick her out?
Yes.
Oh, I saw her, yes.
How she looked?
I love all the special qualities of her, yes. So.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It looks like she just skidded.
Look at that wave. Don't look at mom.
Even the way she
is beautiful.
So sweet.
I love
It's the imperfections that make something beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that collar.
We all love belly rubs.
All right, straight ahead on this Wednesday. It's a story nobody's talking about. What our Border Patrol agents are really up against each and every day.
Our people started changing diapers. They were feeding children. Things that we normally don't expect of our law enforcement people to do. That's what our agents do.
Tommy Lahren just returned from the border, and she will join us live coming up next.
Well, it is the story that no one's telling you about that's happening down on the border, what Border Patrol agents are really up against on a daily basis.
As I've always told people, border security is national security. Our people started changing diapers. They were feeding children. They were taking care of them. I mean, things that we normally don't expect of our law enforcement people to do. That's what our agents do.
Each and every day. Fox News contributor Tommy Lahren just got back from the border to find out firsthand what our agents are up against. She joins us right now from L.A. Tommy, you know, you watch a lot of the channels, and these guys who patrol our border are made out to be monsters, but they are people. And when they see a baby, they try to help the baby, as that guy just said.
Yeah, first and foremost, they're humanitarians. And of course, their job and their duty is to protect our border, to protect the American people. But beyond that, they're even protecting those that are coming to this country illegally. That to me was the most surprisingly wonderful thing that I discovered on my trip to the border, is that these agents, each and every single one that I met, cared about people first, above anything else. That was their priority. And in many cases, these are the only people that are caring about these families and these children, are the Border Patrol agents themselves that are out there making sure that these people are safe and that they are alive and that they are able to return to their families. Our Border Patrol agents are the ones that are doing that.
Yeah, you had a chance to speak to one of those Border Patrol agents, Chief Rodolfo Carsick. Can we see that portion of your interview now?
Let's take a look.
If we do not apply a consequence, you're only inviting additional illegal immigration. And this border is a very dangerous place. I mean, I think I've heard the comment out there about people being outraged of what this administration and what we're doing in particular. But where is the outrage for the public against some of these parents who are taking their children through the desert in extreme heat, very violent areas? They're placing them in the hands of smugglers. I think that that's where the outrage needs to be.
Tommy, what's the biggest problem down there? Is it the just illegal immigrants, moms bringing their babies over, or is it drugs? Did you see any of that?
Really, it's a combination of all those things, and particularly where I was in Tucson and Nogales, they have an issue with drugs, of course, and they deal with this each and every single day. They're seeing drug smugglers, they're seeing coyotes, and that's their biggest fear, is that these children are being placed in the hands of the traffickers and the drug smugglers. So what they told me was the most frustrating thing about what's happening in the last 2 weeks, and the demonization and the vilification of our Border Patrol agents for this family separation. Many people don't understand that a lot of times these agents are separating families because they're not true family units. Many times these children are being placed with coyotes, with drug traffickers, with smugglers, and it's our Border Patrol agents that are stepping in like the humanitarians that they are, not only stopping drugs, not only stopping crime, but also making sure that families, even illegal immigrant families, are safe and taken care of. That's what you won't hear from many of the other mainstream media networks.
You're right. I haven't heard that angle one time until this morning. Tommy, thank you very much for joining us live from LA and going down to the border for us.
Absolutely, and I thank all the Border Patrol agents that are out there each and every single day, because it's often a thankless job and they do a lot of hard work. So thank you to all of you guys that are doing this every day.
All right, Tommy Lahren, thanks. Meanwhile, we forge ahead. Michelle Malkin is going to be on our show, along with House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Are we going to get an immigration deal done, and what will it look like? Kellyanne Conway after that big Supreme Court victory yesterday, and what lies ahead. And Senator Marco Rubio, his eyes on China and stealing our technology. He'll be coming up live.
Plus, after serving the Marines, he started a landscaping business, but when someone stole all of his equipment, he almost had to close up his shop until something happened that will make you even more proud to be an American. That Marine's going to join us live next.
Brandon just got back 2 years in Iraq. They're growing in.
Well, it is the story that no one's telling you about that's happening down on the border, what Border Patrol agents are really up against on a daily basis.
As I've always told people, border security is national security. Our people started changing diapers. They were feeding children. They were taking care of them. I mean, things that we normally don't expect of our law enforcement people to do. That's what our agents do.
Each and every day. Fox News contributor Tommy Lahren just got back from the border to find out firsthand what our agents are up against. She joins us right now from L.A. Tommy, you know, you watch a lot of the channels, and these guys who patrol our border are made out to be monsters, but they are people. And when they see a baby, they try to help the baby, as that guy just said.
Yeah, first and foremost, they're humanitarians, and of course their job and their duty is to protect our border, to protect the American people, but beyond that, they're even protecting those that are coming to this country illegally. That to me was the most surprisingly wonderful thing that I discovered on my trip to the border, is that these agents, each and every single one that I met, cared about people first, above anything else. That was their priority. And in many cases, these are the only people that are caring about these families and these children, are the Border Patrol agents themselves that are out there making sure that these people are safe and that they are alive and that they are able to return to their families. Our Border Patrol agents are the ones that are doing that.
Yeah, you had a chance to speak to one of those Border Patrol agents, Chief Rodolfo Carsick. Can we see that portion of your interview now?
Let's take a look.
If we do not apply a consequence, you're only inviting additional illegal immigration. And this border is a very dangerous place. I mean, I think I've heard the comment out there about people being outraged of what this administration and what we're doing in particular. But where is the outrage for the public against some of these parents who are taking their children through the desert in extreme heat, very violent areas? They're placing them in the hands of smugglers. I think that that's where the outrage needs to be.
Tommy, what's the biggest problem down there? Is it the just illegal immigrants, moms bringing their babies over, or is it drugs? Did you see any of that?
Really, it's a combination of all those things, and particularly where I was in Tucson and Nogales, they have an issue with drugs, of course, and they deal with this each and every single day. They're seeing drug smugglers, they're seeing coyotes, and that's their biggest fear, is that these children are being placed in the hands of the traffickers and the drug smugglers. So what they told me was the most frustrating thing about what's happening in the last 2 weeks, and the demonization and the vilification of our Border Patrol agents for this family separation. Many people don't understand that a lot of times these agents are separating families because they're not true family units. Many times these children are being placed with coyotes, with drug traffickers, with smugglers, and it's our Border Patrol agents that are stepping in like the humanitarians that they are, not only stopping drugs, not only stopping crime, but also making sure that families, even illegal immigrant families, are safe and taken care of. That's what you won't hear from many of the other mainstream media networks.
You're right. I haven't heard that angle one time until this morning. Tommy, thank you very much for joining us live from LA and going down to the border for us.
Absolutely, and I thank all the Border Patrol agents that are out there each and every single day, because it's often a thankless job and they do a lot of hard work. So thank you to all of you guys that are doing this every day.
All right, Tommy Lahren, thanks. Meanwhile, we forge ahead. Michelle Malkin is going to be on our show, along with House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Are we going to get an immigration deal done, and what will it look like? Kellyanne Conway after that big Supreme Court victory yesterday, and what lies ahead. And Senator Marco Rubio, his eyes on China and stealing our technology. He'll be coming up live.
Plus, after serving in the Marines, he started a landscaping business, but when someone stole all of his equipment, he almost had to close up his shop until something happened that will make you even more proud to be an American. That Marine's going to join us live next.
Brandon just got back 2 years in Iraq. They're throwing